Is AI the cause of those problems? Is it the salvation for PE or some other thing?
The important thing to consider is it's helping people spend more time on the right deals and spending less time on deals that may not fit their investment criteria. The Jevons paradox, at least my interpretation is, there's this kind of doomsday narrative that AI is going to take away a lot of jobs. The idea is that it'll actually create more jobs because it will kind of change the way people work.
Right.
And people will spend more time doing high impact things, which is going to then drive demand for those activities. And I think, we'll see that. We will see that in private equity. The way I think about AI value creation, there's kind of three main levers to it. Three main ingredients, if you will. One is AI, so building the right models, which, as we discussed around hyperscalers and all these other folks, building kind of off-the-shelf models, et cetera,
Right.
is easier now than ever. There's a lot of pressure testing to be done in the underlying mechanics and mathematics of these models, but they're very accessible. The second piece is data, right? So you go into this business and their data is located in all kinds of different places. It's very fragmented. Oftentimes they've underinvested in organizing their data, which is perfectly okay, right? Organizing that data is a bit tough. The third piece is the human capital, the change management piece, right? That is the hardest by far, bar none. Yeah. And so that's going to be a critical area where, if I'm on the private equity side and, I'm partnering with the deal teams on driving value creation initiatives, the less work I need to do at my office, in PowerPoint and Excel, organizing data, doing research, et cetera, the more time I can spend with the portfolio companies themselves, developing robust relationships, working with the CEO and the COO or members of the organization, presidents of certain P&L leads, et cetera, really understanding at the core their pain points and what they're doing, and then helping solve those pain points in a more direct way. That's only going to increase the impact that you have to the organization. Right. And, how nice is that, right? So being able to say, look, I have the same number of people, but they're driving greater impact with this organization, there's going to be greater demand for that position. I think that's the point where Jevons paradox comes in the sense that you're going to start hiring and building out that team to really go in there and really effectuate a lot of change, as opposed to hiring out a greater team to do more PowerPoints and Excels and strategy documents and project planning, et cetera, which is, it's important work, right, in terms of governance and structure to these initiatives, but a lot of that work can now be done in AI or accelerated with AI.
And as you said earlier, there is always more work that could be done, more work that a firm would like to do, right? You mentioned firms sometimes can't do diligence on some targets because they're already deep in deals with others and they just don't have the capacity, or they have to decide how to prioritize resources across multiple deals and multiple due diligence exercises, et cetera. So if AI can increase that capacity and at the same time give people, the experts, real time to spend one-on-one with the companies they're investing in and really be creating more value, that definitely sounds like a win.
Yeah.
And the other side of Jevons paradox is that then creates this effect of doing the work more efficiently allows you to do the work differently, which creates more universe of work to be done.
Yeah.
Right? So which is sort of what you described.
And I'd give a recent example on that. So, when you're looking at a business, obviously to grow that business, you do what's called case studies, let's say, right? Okay. So it's basically an aggregation of, what is the solution that this business built? Maybe it's a manufacturing business and they built a certain widget for that customer. And you kind of break out, what is the problem statement? What's the customer? What were their requirements? What did this business build for that customer? What was the competitive advantage of this business building for that customer versus a customer going with someone else? And the output. And so these case studies can then be leveraged to drive sales, right? You can put it on the website. Okay. You can use it in a way, in the way you interact with your current book of business. You can maybe reach out to your prior customers. You can reach out to new customers and leads, et cetera, right? So case studies in certain business industries can be a very kind of important aspect of the way they do this. And so for business that we own in these intersections of materials, industrials, et cetera, the traditional way of creating these case studies is saying, okay, well, we got to go and we got to have someone sit down and they got to be at the portfolio company and they got to build this, 5-pager out. And it's a very long process. And often no one does it, right?
Running around and interviewing people.
Yeah, I got to interview a lot of people. So it's very time consuming. It's hard as someone who does, as an investor that's not in, within the intimate details of a business for 10, 20 years. Right. It's hard for us to come in and do that work, right? So it often has to be at the portfolio company level. So there's a lot of challenges and a lot of friction to this process. And oftentimes people just say, you know what, forget it, let's not do it. Or they'll put it in the back burner, right?
Okay.
Right. Makes sense.
Kind of fast forward to today, in today's world, and this is an example from earlier this week, I visited a manufacturing facility down in Virginia. And I sat down with one of the operators, and there's a widget that they sell at this business that is kind of their marquee SKU, right? So there's a big book of business that comes from this widget.
Okay.
It's something they've been producing for a long period of time, and it's important to their business model, and it really kind of encapsulates like what makes this business special.
Right.
What is their competitive advantage in building this, and what do they do for customers that other businesses cannot? So I sat down with the operator who kind of manages production of this widget. And I spent 5 minutes. I said, are you okay with me recording this conversation? He said, yes, sure. I record audio conversations. So just walk me through verbally. What is it? What do you do? What did the customer ask for? What makes it so unique, et cetera? So we finished that conversation. I then transcribed it speech to text on my way to the airport, went through TSA security, sat on the airplane, and then I started opening up Claude. And I just said, look, this is the entire business, directed to the website. I had some materials on the business itself in terms of what they do, the financials, so give it the right amount of context. I said, here is a transcribed dialogue with an operator. Help me build a case study around this. And it did it in like 30 seconds.
Wow.